Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Village of Tequesta and to a regular meeting of the Village Council. It is Thursday, January 14th, 2021, and it is 6 p.m. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Mayor Brennan?
Here.
Vice Mayor Stone?
Here.
Councilmember Brandon?
Here.
Councilmember D'Ambra?
Here.
Councilmember Prince?
Here.
Thank you. The invocation and pledge of allegiance will be led by Councilmember Laurie Brandon.
Heavenly Father, we ask you for your ever-guiding strength for our families, friends, first responders, military, and our leaders, as we all work hard to live strong, smart, and work together as a village. May you heal the hearts of those whom have lost someone over this past year. Please watch over our wonderful village family as we continue through this unknown year of 2021. Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before we get started, I'm going to read a little thing into the record here. In addition to live streaming this meeting on our YouTube channel, we have added the ability to participate using Zoom. That link can be found at the top of the agenda. Cards submitted will be read first by the clerk, and then we will open the Zoom lines for comments. As is the practice in chambers, please state your name and address for the record. Public comments and questions from citizens are limited to 3 minutes. All comments will be taken during citizen comments. Please identify the agenda item you wish to speak to. First on our agenda is the presentation by Palm Beach County Property Appraiser Dorothy Jacks, also my friend. And Mr. Allen, will you please introduce Ms. Jacks?
Yes, ma'am. Dorothy was elected to office for Palm Beach County Property Appraiser in 2016 after a distinguished 28-year career in office. During her tenure, Ms. Jacks has leveraged technology to better serve the citizens of Palm Beach County. Several advanced and robust systems are now in place to increase efficiency and make it even easier for public to access property information online. She has also made it possible to do business with her office from the comfort of your home or office by moving several services to the web, including file for homestead exemptions and portability. As a result of Ms. Jack's leadership for her office has clear strategic goals for the future. You can expect to see continuous advancements in technology, staff development, customer service processes, and eventually the goal is to have the operation as 100% paperless. Ms. Jacks is a globally recognized expert in her field as a certified Florida appraiser and assessment administration specialist. She has the highest professional distinguished designation in Florida and one of the highest international designations from someone who holds the office of property appraiser. I have heard Ms. Jacks speak on a couple different occasions, and I've been very impressed with her, and I thank her for what she does. But Ms. Jacks.
Well, thank you and good evening. Thank you so much for inviting me to come up and speak to you. I have to tell you, this is my first meeting such as this in, 10 months, I suppose, 9 or 10 months. But it's a delight, actually, to come out. So thank you for asking me. I thought tonight I would just speak briefly about some of the statistics about Tequesta and tell you a little bit about how we're managing COVID countywide as far as property values, and then I'd be happy to take any questions you have about our office or our operation. So Tequesta is just a great place. I have to tell you that we're very map-centric in the property appraiser's office, and as I was preparing tonight, I was looking at the aerial photography of this area, and it's just such an attractive community even from the air, so I have to just point that out. I was thinking about that as I drove here. But Tequesta now 3,419 parcels. So a parcel is anything you can tax. So it is whether it's a single-family home, an office tower, or a condominium. It's an element that you can tax. Of those, 3,100 are single-family or condominium, which is important, and I'll talk about that in a minute. The market value is now over $1.7 billion, and the taxable value $1.2 billion. You had very good appreciation year over year, so 19 to 20 are still the numbers we're using because, of course, we're not yet calculating the 21 numbers, but 4.2% this year, which is excellent. It was right in the sort of mix. The county-wide total was 5.1%, so you can see you were very close to that. Some of the smaller communities, inland communities, interestingly, places like Green Acres and Palm Springs and even Lake Worth were the ones that were showing higher than 5%. I think a lot of that has to do with affordability and also location near artery roads and so forth. It does help to contribute to a robust moving tax base. Of the 3,419 parcels, 60% of them are homesteaded. So that's also an interesting statistic because it tells you that homesteaded properties are capped. Because you have a homestead, your value only increases up to 3% a year, year over year. So there's a limited availability in communities where the majority of homes are homesteaded. Now, in your case, 60% is actually very good. I've seen that percentage up to 80 and 90%. And so having 40% of your properties still able to ratchet up as the market goes up gives you that opportunity to collect taxes on a moving inventory of properties as opposed to capped homesteaded properties, which the only time they really move is when they sell. And certainly that's fine. That's when what we call recapture the value in those properties. But of course, if you have a community where not a lot of people move, you sort of can become stagnant. But again, 60% is a good number. It's not too high, as it were, as what you would think of in many communities that are predominantly residential. And it also means that in that mix, you've got people who are part-timers, so who are snowbirds, if you will. And they are, going back and forth. And of course, because their properties aren't capped by the 3% cap, they're continuing to pay tax, which is great. We are well aware of your interesting new project, Sea Glass, the condominium on the ocean. I was talking to one of my staff who's actually a member of your Planning and Zoning Committee, Steve Egan, who is now my Director of Evaluation. He's been with us for a very long time. He's worked with me for almost 25 years, I think. But he and I were talking about Sea Glass and that interesting dynamic of it being an oceanfront property, but still within the village of Tequesta, and what properties, that was one reason I was looking at the maps, what properties are distinctive like that you have on that ocean side. But we assume it will probably come online in 2023. Is that the thinking on that? Yeah. I would caution when you look at what will that add to your tax base, it's always good to moderate what you hear that they're going to sell for and how much that seems as though that would equal to the value, as a certain amount of that value, the sales price, is actually in that land, which is very valuable by its nature. And of course, also sometimes these properties, although I don't suspect it will happen with Sea Glass, it looks like an amazing place and unique. Sometimes these properties don't sell as well as the developers might tell you that they will. I mean, of course, the developers are hoping they do. Sometimes they don't. There was a condo recently built in South Palm Beach, which is an oceanfront community with a lot of condominium buildings. An old building was taken down, a brand new building was put up with the expectation of some very high sales, and it didn't happen. So, that can also moderate how much value is added. But as we get closer, as through 22, we'll be talking to you. We're happy to kind of look at it more closely and give you a better idea of what it will add to your value. The other good news is just good sales information on properties on the US 1 corridor. Some of the commercial properties changing hands. That's always very good, gives us a good sense of what the market is doing, and helps us to set the values for the other properties, similar properties in the same corridor. Just quickly, Palm Beach County overall, we are watching a very, very strong residential market right now, almost in some ways too strong. It's kind of we're starting to wonder when there is going to be some moderation to it. Transactions are moving very fast and furious and at a much higher level than they were the same time last year. Days on the market are almost half of what they were same time when I talked 20, the end of 20 to the end of 19. And also the sale prices are increasing. Our sales price, median sales price on a single family was around $355,000 at the end of 2019. It's now at $418,000. So it's quite dramatic, the uptick in the market. And we're not 100% sure of where it's coming from. There is a supply issue, meaning there is not a lot of supply. A lot of people chose not to sell their homes this year, so there isn't the natural turnover in the market. But there's also an increased demand from the Northeast, folks who are now able to work virtually or choosing to move here early. Maybe they were going to retire here and they've decided just to come 5 or 10 years sooner. So we're seeing a lot of different things that are driving that market, and we're watching it very closely. The good news is that that will help to buoy the whole tax roll next year, this year, 2021. It will help to offset some of the losses in the commercial sector. So of course the commercial sector, primarily retail, restaurant, and then hotels being probably the biggest sector hit, have taken the brunt of the COVID crisis. And we're watching all of that very closely, looking at income information we're getting right now to see how we're going to adjust in those sectors. We haven't seen it so much with office space yet. We think that's probably because of long-term leases, also the CARES Act money, the PPP money that came in. A lot of businesses have been able to hold it together, and hopefully that will continue. And as the vaccine rolls out, things will get better even in the restaurant and retail sectors. And here's another good news point, and that is that about 70% of our value in Palm Beach County is generated from the residential sector. So it will offset some of those losses and will basically, as I say, raise all ships, because it will hold up the whole system even if the commercial market takes quite a hit. So all in all, I think Tequesta itself is in a very good position going into 2021, especially because of those good numbers in the residential market and also those good transactions in the commercial market that will help us with the US 1 corridor. And I look forward to helping you some more as we go through the beginning of this year. We really are just now starting to do the calculations for the 2021 roll. We give you your first numbers at the very end of May each year. And so, usually by about April, we have a good sense of where things are, and be happy to talk to you some more then. So thank you so much for having me. I'd be happy to take some questions if you'd like, Mayor.
Questions?
I have a question.
Please.
Well, first of all, thank you for coming. It's been a pleasure, and all this information's been great. My question is concerning the homestead and the 60% that you said that we're at. It appears that that number might increase as more people might be coming here and making this their homestead. Do you see that happening or perceive that maybe happening in Tequesta?
Not necessarily quickly. I think maybe over time that will happen a little more. But there's also that thought, and it's something just to keep in your mind as you look at development as it comes. Anytime you're building residential property, you're going to have a certain amount that will be homesteaded, and probably 60%, and going higher than that is probably a good sort of place to think about that. Now, It's wonderful to have homesteaders. They're going to be steady, steady and important residents of any community. They make a community strong. But also, sea glass, for instance. I'm not sure there will be a lot of homesteaders in that building necessarily. That's not the sort of type of building you see a lot of homestead exemptions. I look at the Bristol, which was built in downtown West Palm Beach, a very, very beautiful condominium building. Not a lot of homestead exemptions in that building. So, sometimes that's, I think you win some, you lose some, as it were. Getting more homesteaders will be a good thing for the community. But you also, if your inventory continues to be diverse, it can also help offset that.
Sure. Thank you.
Anything, Frank?
I'm good.
Go ahead.
No, I'm good.
Oh, you're good. I know you're saying you're just looking at this now, but in the strip malls, if you will, the shopping plazas, they are obviously losing some tenants. Some not because of COVID, but because they're downsizing their various businesses. I have a person that does nails in that process, and she has begged her landlord to give her some relief. And of course, she keeps mentioning it as if I can do anything about it, which obviously I cannot. We keep that church and state, completely separate. But at what point do you think that you're going to see a change in the value of these shopping centers?
Shopping centers have a double problem. They have the COVID issue of are people going shopping or doing things like having their nails as frequently as they might have, nails done frequently as they might have before. And so you have that. Now, the federal government is talking about a new relief package that a lot of it will be driven towards businesses, and it's unfortunate that her landlord hasn't extended some of those benefits, or if she could look into that in more detail to see if there's benefits she can receive for rent relief, which is going on. And I suspect if more of that comes into the market or comes into our community from the federal government, that'll help somewhat to hold things together for a while. But the second bigger issue with retail, and I'm just now talking about retail, not necessarily personal services, but retail, is people are shopping online. There is going to be a move away from specialty retail, or there will be a move all the way to very specialty retail being the only thing that in shopping centers, and then you'll have everybody shopping online and using the malls as a sort of return place. I mean, that seems to be what's starting to happen now. I worry most about the regional malls because of that element. They're enclosed, people are just shopping online. Right. So you've got two things going on there. The other thing is a lot of strip centers have small businesses in them. So the insurance agent and they may be working from home. They may have opted for that and moving forward. A real estate office might not need as much space. Now, the distinction, though, I think, is that's more of a long-term, sort of 3-year process. It's not going to happen for 2021, but we may see it happen further along. The other thing I think about is some of the locations of these strip centers is prime real estate. I mean, they were built at a time when that was how everybody shopped. They went from one bay to another, and these are in some very prime locations, and possibly that real estate is ready for a different use. And so that's something to think about. Maybe it will just naturally transition into something else as the use of that sort of shopping goes down and it becomes something else. Okay. So it's a hard one to answer, but a lot will depend on what happens with the federal stimulus, the next federal stimulus, and also how the market holds together, and of course the vaccine rollout. Will people, once the rollout is complete, sort of the summer or the fall, will people start going out again and going back to have their nails done and so forth, and wanting to go and see their insurance agent, wanting to go into their bank? Will that come back, or will people be sort of like, well, I've done this for a year, maybe I'll stick with it?
Yeah, right. Well, thank you. Anything else? Well, thank you again for coming here, for doing what you do. Your office has been a friend to the Village of Tequesta, and it's finance department for as long as I've been here.
Thank
So
you very
we
much.
very much appreciate you.
All right, thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
All right, move on to, do I have a motion for the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, we are going to be going next to communications from citizens, and Brad, I'm going to ask you to open the lines so that if
We
there...
have nobody on the line.
You have nobody on the line. That'll be an easy opening of the line. No one at all.
No, just department heads
Okay.
and Tesla.
Does anybody else want to speak? Do you have any cards?
I have no cards.
All right, thank you very much. So that is the end of communications from citizens, and we'll move on to communications from council. Why don't we start with Councilmember DeAmbro? We'll go this way for one.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to be brief. Just a couple of things. First, we're going to be talking about this later, the finance agreement around the community center, but I just wanted to commend everybody involved. I got to see the terms that were being offered, and they were exceptional. And I think, given the environment we're in, I guess there is some silver linings occasionally, and one of them obviously is where the interest rates are, and the willingness of lending institutions to work with us. Village obviously has a great credit rating, it's got a great history, it's got a great base, and that's reflected in the terms that we've been able to garner. So my thanks to Jeremy and you and everyone else who participated and worked on this effort. The second thing I wanted to just say is just a reminder of how fortunate we are to live in Florida and live in an open state with a governor who has chosen to look at the whole issue holistically, not in a very narrow way. And obviously, we're benefiting from that on a personal basis. But just as an example, we have 2 new restaurants that are opening. We have the Greek restaurant opening at the Corner Cafe, and we have Andalusia, which is already opened. So we're in an environment where in many, many places businesses are shutting down. Many of them will never reopen. We're in an environment where business people are willing to take some risk and willing to put money forward and make investments. And we're happy to have them do that in the community at Tequesta. So again, we're benefiting tremendously, I think, from a wise policy in terms of how we're dealing with the issue and dealing with the economy and again, looking at the broader spectrum of how this is impacting everybody's life at multiple levels. So that's it for me tonight.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
I just wanted to, a couple things, thank the departments that were involved with the different events that we had with regards to getting people to get out and shop at the local businesses. I think that we had some real good success with that going into the end of December with a couple of different events with the sidewalk sales and the gift cards. A lot of excitement around that, and I think it's only going to build for next year. And looking forward to doing it again next year and making it as big as we can and encourage more and more people to come to our special town to shop.
Excellent. Councilmember Prince?
I don't have anything, thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Brandon?
Nothing specific, other than I think we all can agree that we encourage our residents to ask questions before making assumptions on anything. Never be afraid to ask any question. No question is too small. And the entire village staff, as well as everyone up here, is at your fingertips. We work for you, so please don't be afraid to ask questions about anything going on. That way, things will get clarified. I really believe in communication, and I think everyone is doing a good job so far. It could always be better, but I think we're in a much better place than we used to be. That is all.
Excellent. And a lot of that is thanks to you because you have reached out to everybody in this village, and often.
But it takes a team. I mean,
Yes.
obviously, we all can't talk to each
Yeah.
other, so I know we all answer phone calls
Yeah.
and emails and
True. And-
passing people in Publix.
Right. I was on a phone call yesterday. We do this every couple of weeks. Mayor Singer from Boca Raton started a group of all the mayors in every Palm Beach County municipality. And yesterday, he was able to get Dr. Alonso on the call, as well as Mayor Kerner and Virginia Baker. And obviously, they were there to talk to us about the coronavirus and the vaccine, really, is what that was about. And as we saw, and I know Chief is going to talk about this a little bit later, but as we saw here, the doses are small that are being released. Nobody knows for sure what they're getting, when they're going to get it. Now they're going to get it. And she basically said, it's horrible, you know, for some people to say this, but you have a long-term situation here. Don't expect that in 3 months we're all going to be inoculated. It's just not going to occur. And it's very difficult for anybody, whether you're a teacher or work at Publix, especially people that are a little elderly, that especially with underlying conditions. But she did mention that they are doing everything they can, but the way it works comes down from the federal government. It goes to it goes then to the states. The states then determine where it goes here in Tequesta, not our county. The county is part of this in what they do, but it is not the county's direction that they are receiving. So she, again, everybody is so frustrated and everybody's trying to remain as calm as possible, but it is a long-term situation. So it was good to be able to speak with her directly. And one thing I asked her was, if you had COVID before, do you need to be inoculated? And she said yes, that there is no guarantee at this time that once you've had COVID, that you are definitely going to be free from having it again. And it has happened, apparently. But, again, she just said that. So you can't say, well, we can take all the people that, I was wondering, can you take all the people that have had COVID and say, okay, we'll put you over here and go over here? But apparently, they are not differentiating that at that level. And that is my report. So let's move on to our standing reports. Start with Village Attorney Davis.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a report per se. If the council has any questions about any particular matter, I'll be happy to try and answer those for you.
Okay. Anybody for Keith?
One thing, I have the document that I'm, I guess, supposed to sign later. This. You're good? Okay. I don't need to sign it? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let's get our report now from Village Manager Allen.
We have a lot of good things going on in the village. We obviously have COVID and the vaccination, but just a couple of the highlights. Our customer portal is up and going. We've seen a huge increase of people utilizing that now. Last week we put an insert into the water bill that helped drive quite a few people into actually signing up for the portal. So very positive, because that was the intent, is to try to get that out and get people using it. Stormwater project has begun on Pine Tree and Tequesta Drive. There's some stormwater improvements on both sides of Tequesta Bridge, water main replacement on Bridge Road. So there's projects happening here in Tequesta, things that need to happen for years, and so we're moving on. As was mentioned, we had a couple new restaurants opening. Hopefully we can patronize those businesses. I know that Mayor Stone and our Vice Mayor Stone and Laurie went with me, and we went to those restaurants and welcomed them to the village. The community center is on schedule still. I know there was some concern, based on the holidays and whatnot, but Hedricks has really just plowed through. We're planning on the demo of the building starting the week of January 25th. So you'll start to see that building, the old building, come down. Next week you'll see some fencing. It's kind of a neat thing that they did. They allowed our residents or anybody who wanted to draw some pictures that will go up on that fencing that will stay up for the year. So that's kind of a neat thing that our community got to get involved with. The GMP, which is the gross maximum price that we're anticipating to see what that is going to come out for the community center, the second and final one. Those will be open tomorrow. And so we're very interested to see how those will come out. Of course, they still have to be vetted, and then we'll bring those back to council for the February meeting. Hopefully in anticipation of kicking the construction off. We hope to have a groundbreaking February 17th. So mark your calendars for that. And the last thing is on January 25th, the North Chamber County Chamber of Commerce is going to be hosting a business forum for our business leaders to hopefully help with getting through the COVID, and even as we kind of look forward into the bridge closing, how we as a community can help those businesses, and if there's any action item, they're going to come up with a strategic plan for us to use to help our businesses. So very, very good forum. I know Noel, he's done these before, he's been able to facilitate these conversations, so I think it'll be very helpful and healthy for us. With that, that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We have received written reports from police and fire and utilities. I would ask Chief Medina if there's anything new that has been going on, something that you would like to bring to our attention since your report.
No, ma'am.
All right, thank you. Chief Trube, I'm sure you have a few things to talk about tonight.
I thought I'd come back up here. It's been a while, but Mayor, thank you for inviting me up. Council, Mr. Manager, Village Attorney. Yeah, the fire department's been busy. Obviously, we're very well engaged in COVID and our response to that. I'll get to that in a second. The first thing I want to bring up, of course, is we did receive our new rescue truck. So I want to once again thank Council for that. It's a beautiful truck. We will have some sort of COVID appropriate ceremony at some point. We are moving equipment over. Our guys are going through training. I've got pretty much everybody but one shift through. The only reason they didn't get through, they were busy running calls, and we just couldn't get to it. So we're real close on putting that truck in service is what I wanted to say. So we'll be proud of that. So hopefully I'll be able to coordinate with Chief Medina on new equipment and some sort of ceremony at some point. Now on to COVID. Of course, you've seen my report, so you know the numbers continue to rise, both locally, Palm Beach County, and statewide. We're seeing numbers, I know today's we're a little over 13,000, as high as 23,000 statewide. The record prior to this latest little surge was 15,000. So we are consistently seeing numbers above the old record. I would expect that to continue through, certainly through the end of the month and maybe well into February. The only thing that can really stop it is people wearing masks, social distancing, and of course the vaccine. Now the vaccine, obviously that's a hot topic. And the mayor already alluded to it. This is all a supply chain issue. If we had 1,000 doses here in Tequesta, I could deliver 1,000 doses to the people of Tequesta in short order. And by short order, I mean within 2 weeks, no problem. Possibly even quicker than that. It's not a problem getting it out. It's a problem getting the doses. So really, if I could ask anything of any of you on council, do what you can, talk to whoever you can, but see about freeing up the supply chain. I need your help. That's the truth. We can't do this really without everybody kind of pulling on the rope the same way. The fire chiefs obviously went to the Department of Health along, in conjunction with emergency management. We were able to secure very small amounts of vaccine. So we will be doing a pod, tomorrow for 50 Tequesta residents. Now, that doesn't seem like a lot, but there are communities that got nothing. So we have to keep that in perspective. I've heard people say that expectations are too high. I think it's up to us to try to rise and meet the expectations. But I do think we need to communicate better so that people understand the problems that persist with getting this out. Logistically, there's storage requirements. I have to monitor vaccine dosages every hour. I have to have a log of the high and the low temperature. I have to keep people 6 feet apart wearing a mask when they're at our sites. I have to monitor people when they're done for at least 15 minutes, if not 30 minutes, if they've had an anaphylactic reaction prior. This slows the entire process down. There's also paperwork. It's a government thing, there's got to be a little bit of paperwork. So if it was just simply me taking a needle and sticking everybody in the arm, this would be easy. It's not. But we do have a very good plan in place. I have an excellent team that works on this tirelessly. I believe somebody mentioned that Tessa was online tonight. Tessa doesn't need to be online tonight. She should be home. I hope she's listening. But she's one of those workers that just works until the job is done. She was here last night helping us get this pod organized to 7:30, 8 o'clock. This has gone on regularly. This is what we're doing. We are working extremely hard, and as hard as anybody, you know, that I've been around. And I'm not talking about just me and Tessa. I've got a lot of people. Ray Giblin, who's my point man in this pod operation. Andre Dodd, who I've mentioned before on infection control. Jason Fawcett, who handles our public information. And many, many, many others, because if we're all doing pods, somebody else has to do the work, because we still run a fire department. I guess my point is we are working as hard as we can with our partner agencies, with the Department of Health, with Palm Beach County Emergency Management, and with the Fire Chiefs Association to secure as much vaccine as we possibly can get. But the numbers just don't add up. 65 and over in Palm Beach County is roughly 450,000 people. Palm Beach County DOH routinely receives about 4,000 to 5,000 doses per week. If you do the simple math, I'll be 4 years giving all those people 2 doses, unless the supply chain catches up. So I guess what I'm trying to tell you is, in making the decision to try to bring the vaccine to Tequesta, the option was bring in a little or bring in nothing. I stand by my decision to try to secure as much vaccine, because at some point I swore an oath to protect the residents of Tequesta, and I will do that as best that I can. And I know there's a lot of questions about scheduling and how we do this. When you go into an operation like this, we know full well not everything will be perfect. We completely expect to make changes along the way to become more efficient, to smooth it out. And quite frankly, if anybody has a better idea on how to do it, I'm all ears. Come see me, make a phone call, come see me, send me an email. I'm open to suggestion. We are well aware that there are people over 65, maybe on the high end, that are not exactly computer savvy. We're going to try to address that. You know, I had a young lady, senior, come to me to the window today and, you know, basically said, look, I don't have computer access. I don't know how to do this. How can I get in to get the vaccine? Those questions frustrate me, frustrate my team just as much as it frustrated her. So what I would ask everybody to do that talks to the residents, any residents that are listening, is just to have patience. We're working on it. We'll come up with another way to address those people as best we can. And just know that we're working tirelessly to do that. I really don't think I have anything else I can add to that. We'll take questions. I believe you have the rest of my report. And I figured we'd spend more time on vaccines than anything else. So.
Any questions for the chief?
The question that I got asked several times today was, how can the village single the vaccine to only village residents?
Okay, well, there's a couple of things in play here. First of all, we have to follow CDC guidelines and DOH guidelines, which that gets us to the 65 and over component. The other part of this is a closed pod. This is not an open pod. An open pod would be anybody shows up, we give the vaccine to. Because we have a limited supply, we applied under our closed pod agreement that we have with the Department of Health to supply these vaccines to our residents. So it's really as simple as that. We determine what the closed pod is.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Just a quick question, Chief.
Sure.
Because I know you guys are working tirelessly. Have we done any process mapping to look to see where there are opportunities, as you said, to improve the efficiencies? And is there any, I understand the regulatory environment, and unfortunately the regulatory environment usually creates more problems than it solves. Are there any avenues there that you have some wiggle room on that you can, you know, again, maybe function in a more efficient, faster paced manner?
That's a good question. So I'll take the first part of that. Anytime we do an operation, anytime our fire department responds to a serious incident, we do what we call basically a review of the incident. An after-action report is created. given the speed at which we're going, I'm not going to say anything as formal as that will happen, but I do fully expect to sit down with the team on probably Tuesday and go over this entire operation front to back to see what we can do. You know, right off the top of my head, I'm aware that scheduling is going to be a hot topic. We're going to have to figure out how else we can reach people and fairly schedule. You know, in this case, you know, this came up Tuesday night, and by Wednesday morning, we were becoming aware that we were going to receive some vaccine, and we had to be ready to go. So with that in mind, I have to be able to advertise and have a system in place by Wednesday night, literally, in order to do the scheduling Thursday, in order to vet the people that are on, that have gotten the appointments, in order to get the people to the pod the following day. So there's just not a lot of time in it. But yeah, we'll review the entire operation front to back, number of personnel, who did what. And in this case, we're basically deploying all fire and rescue personnel with of course, law enforcement support. That does two things. One, it puts my guys in all the positions, and two, my team learns each position. We'll be able to rotate. So the one good thing about having a small number of people, it's not a training exercise, but I will rotate people into different positions so they can each see it. I walk out of there with 3 or 4 managers of the sites, you know, for later. Our goal would be to ramp up. And once again, you know, this is a numbers problem. We've got about 6,300 residents. We think we have 1,700 to 1,800 people in that 65 and over category. If, let's say, 1,200 of them actually want the vaccine, yeah, I know we made 50 people happy, and I know there's still 1,150 out there that are unhappy. It's the number. I just need the vaccine. We can run the pods. We can run more people through them. We have agreements, you know, at least verbally at this point, in place to do off-site stuff. But I have to have the vaccine, and I can't do it without it.
Well, that's the other part of my question, because you mentioned, you know, the manpower that you're having to devote to this effort. Mm-hmm. Is there an opportunity, you just mentioned off-site, is there an opportunity to contract either with CVS or Walgreens or, you know, maybe, I don't know if there's a physician's office in town, but is there any opportunity, as you said, to off-site it, to offload it so that instead of having your folks having to administer all the vaccines, we can take advantage of other entities that are within our town?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Early on in the process, we realized that manpower would be our single biggest issue, really. If you take a standard pod operation and try to push 200 people through it, it takes roughly 12 people to do it. A couple of those are law enforcement, some are admin support. That actually only supports 2 or 3 paramedics actually doing needle sticks. It's how it works out. But you need multiple people that are, you know, supervisory role, some people that are in logistics roles, because again, the storage requirements. It can't be anybody that takes it out of the freezer. It has to thaw for a certain amount of time. You have to have a log for all of this. If you don't, basically the DOH comes in and says, you're not doing it right, we're not giving you anymore. So we have to play by the rules. So manpower, yes, obviously there's an overtime, you know, component to this. How much does that cost? So you immediately start factoring that in. But more so than the overtime, the numbers of people that I need on the fire rescue side are huge. So how many times can my guys work a full 24-hour shift, come off duty, and then work overtime for, you know, 8-10 hours? Yes, they're very capable, they're very good, and they work very hard, and they want to support the community, but they'll become a breaking point. We all know that. So it's just a question of how long you want to drive them. I don't want to drive them into the ground. Right. So we have actually already looked into a couple of those things. I've reached out, I've had meetings for personnel companies, nursing companies that supply nurses, and of course admin support as well. I have 2 quotes. I'm looking at both of them. The manager has seen at least one. I believe I forwarded the other one today. At least I hope I did that. Today was busy, so if not, you'll get it in the morning. And we're looking at those. They could support us a little bit, but again, part of the problem even with them is they want notice on when you need the people. Well, I just told you, literally, they came up Tuesday, and by Wednesday they're saying, yes, you're actually getting it, and I got to go into operation by Friday. So we got to get the supply chain worked out. I got to have the doses. I have to know I'm getting the doses. I mean, if I knew I was getting 100 doses a week, as long as I wanted them, this would be relatively easy. If I knew I was going to get 1,000 doses tomorrow that I could distribute over the next 30 days, that would be easy. It's just, it's the not knowing. And then if you start factoring in what might not be Moderna, it might be J&J or AstraZeneca, well, that's a whole nother thing we have to learn how to do. So our guys have had to learn about vaccines, have to learn about COVID, side effects, how to properly store it, how to thaw it. And we've done all that, so
Well, and you
we're
said
prepared,
too,
we're ready to go.
you said
Bottom
too,
line
is
is the
your-
doses.
is hopefully the supply increases. As you're indicating, again, you want to be able to just get that in people's arms as quickly as possible.
Yep.
If you've got your whole department doing nothing but that, so, yeah, again, that's where I think, the outsourcing and bringing in other parties to assist, particularly if you do get that bump in supply, which people are hoping will be forthcoming. I heard Johnson & Johnson may be applying for their EUA sometime in the next 2 to 3 weeks and hoping for approval in February, I believe. So obviously, that's going to add a whole nother increment, so.
Yeah, I heard the same thing. I think the expectation was by mid-February they'd be shipping.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
we're hopeful for that.
And that's only a
You know,
one-shot deal, and that's,
That one
that
is
helps.
very exciting because it is a one-shot deal. I have no idea on their efficacy, if it reached the same as
Yeah,
Pfizer or Moderna.
I heard
but-
today it was 90.
Was it 90?
Versus
That's
the
good.
95 of the Pfizer and the Moderna. But still,
That's
90
good.
is good.
We would have taken anything like even 55 or 60%, to be honest with you. So to hear 90 numbers coming out, that's excellent. Just to further answer your question, yes, absolutely, I want support personnel from a company to support my guys. I would only need 3, 4 guys tops on a real big event in order to manage it. So we can maintain that.
What are the requirements for someone to administer the vaccine so far as experience or licensing or something like that goes?
Typically, it comes with this, certifications. Certainly a paramedic can do it, an RN can do it. There's literally a list. So I don't want to get into all of the healthcare people that can do it because, for example, like a phlebotomist, some can, some can't. And you have to know the difference. There's additional licensing with a phlebotomist that allows them to literally push the vaccine or not. So it's, we do have that list, so we know who we're looking for.
I was wondering if maybe you could solicit some of the retired people that would maybe want to come in and assist, in doing something like that.
We, along with looking at outside companies, we did consider contracting our own people that we either know or we've vetted through interview processes prior. So that would involve us bringing on either part-time temporary employees or contract employees. And we do have a working list on that. So that is also something that we could possibly do. And again, that's something the manager and I would have to talk about a little further.
Yeah, and I don't know if this would be viable, but I know, for example, Tequesta Terrace just administered first shots to their residents earlier this week. And obviously, they have nursing staff there.
Yep.
They have to take care of their residents. I'm also thinking of futures where they have medical staff. I don't know if either one of those groups could be an additional, not sole, obviously, but could play in the game. I don't know if they're worth reaching out to or not to see.
Like, for example, we did reach out to Helix. Now, Helix can provide us with administrative support, and that's almost as important as the people doing the sticks. Again, I've got 12 people in a pod. 2 are really doing sticks. One's drawing meds. One is overseeing the supply. The rest of the people are doing other things, and probably 4 or 5 of them are doing admin support type functions. So it's almost as important as anything else. The actual physical sticking the needle in the arm is not that difficult. So, but yeah, we will reach out to anybody who we think we can partner with right now. We're working on it as best as we can.
It sounds like you've got it under control. Everything that we're thinking about, you're already down the road ahead of us.
The toughest one is the scheduling. Just for the record, the software we use is called Acuity. It was used at Town of Palm Beach. Green Acres Fire Rescue is using it. I believe Delray's using it. Most of the agencies went to it. When we knew we were going to have to do this, I really only asked a few questions. I got Brad involved in it from IT. He gave me a list of 4. Acuity was on there. And I asked my fire rescue partners, and Acuity was what they were using. We were able to witness it in action at Town of Palm Beach. when I sent my lieutenant to watch their process. So there were no problems with the acuity itself, and it meets HIPAA guidelines and a lot of things that we look for as well. So we went with that. So that part worked, but we might need to add to this process, I guess is my point.
I just have a simple question. What time are you
Okay.
starting tomorrow, and what time do you plan on finishing?
We're 9 to 2 tomorrow. So we're doing 5 every half hour, so 10 an hour for 5 hours, and then we'll be done. We can easily ramp that up. We had plans to do 100 a day, and we have plans to ramp that from 100 to 125 to 150 if we can. If we get much above the 125 mark, I really got to have another location, because it'll just be too much. And I do have that spot already picked out, so.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Anything else? All right, thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Let's move on to the regular agenda, and item number 5 is, Matt Hammond, I didn't mean to overlook you, but I know you're on the agenda for about 4 things coming up, and figured you'd be there quite a bit tonight. Okay, so item 5 is ordinance number 09-20, and this is second reading.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 0920, an ordinance of the Village Council, Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances at Chapter 54, Offenses, Article 1 in general, creating an entirely new Section 54-7 entitled Balloons and Sky Lanterns, providing definitions, prohibition, exceptions, enforcement, and penalties for the release of balloons and sky lanterns within the village. Providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 54 shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, severability clause, authority to codify an effective date and for other purposes. This is second reading, and I might mention it got some good press in the paper this morning.
Yes, we did, and a lot of things. Well, this is a public hearing, and it is now open for council comment.
Let's do it.
Yeah, okay. All right, it is now closed to the council and open to the public. We did not have anyone comment on this when we had the line open. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this? Yes, ma'am, please come to the podium and identify yourself.
Valerie Hampy, 344 Venus Avenue, right across the street. I'm very much in agreement with the ban, and I support it. I've read enough and seen enough of the devastating effects on wildlife that I can't imagine not banning it. So I just wanted to let you know I support it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak? All right, it is now closed to the public. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Mayor, I'm sorry, before you do that, we do have several folks on the Zoom call now. I'm not sure if you can reopen it. I'm not sure if they want to speak or not.
Are they on the Zoom call for this item?
There's no way to tell.
You just have to ask.
All right, open that line then. We're going to have to be careful about this because we did set this up earlier, how we were going to handle this. So you can open it up for this one, and then we can, again, what I was saying to those callers on Zoom would just be to identify the item that you would like to speak to, and then please speak to it, just so we would know that. So if you want to open that now, is there anybody that would like to speak to council?
I've sent unmute requests to all those attending the Zoom meeting. If you want to speak, you can accept the request and identify yourselves and the item you wish to speak to. It doesn't look like we have any takers, Mayor, so I think we're good.
Thank you. Yep, I appreciate that. So where was I? I think we were in the middle of taking a vote on this.
Motion.
We had a motion.
We had a motion.
We had a second.
We had a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, item number 6. This is, let's see, ordinance number 10-20, also second reading.
Thank you, Mayor. Ordinance 10-20, an ordinance of the Village Council, the Village of Tequesta, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances at Chapter 46, Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Article 1 in general, creating a new Section 46-4 entitled Electric Bicycles on Sidewalks Prohibited, providing definitions, prohibitions, enforcement, and penalties for the operation of electric bicycles or e-bikes on sidewalks within the village, providing that each and every other section and subsection of Chapter 46 shall remain in full force and effect as previously adopted, providing a conflicts clause, severability clause, authority to codify an effective date, and for other purposes.
Thank you. This is a public hearing, now open for council comment.
I'll make a comment in the aspect, I still believe that when we force e-bikes on the road, it is more dangerous for the individual on that bike than it is for a pedestrian to be on a sidewalk with regards to an e-bike. So I will still oppose this.
Yeah, and I would concur with the Vice Mayor on his view of this situation.
Okay. Any comments here? The only thing I would say is when the village gets to the point, and I would hope it would be soon, that our sidewalks will be widened, our pathways will be widened to be able to accommodate this type of traffic, if you will. There are so many roads within the country club, within all of the other communities that are not, they don't have sidewalks to begin with. There are places for people to ride these e-bikes. So, but again, I would be much more willing to entertain this if we had the proper width sidewalk and path.
I would say that our roads are skinny as well.
Yes, they are.
Yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying, Mayor. I just think that, again, it's a matter of a risk analysis, and like the Vice Mayor said, I think that there's a greater risk putting them out on the street than there is keeping them on the sidewalk, so.
Allowing them on the sidewalk.
Allowing them on the sidewalk. So I mean, I agree.
And that's the debate.
Given that
Yeah,
option.
and granted, certain places, there are no sidewalks, and that's fine, but we're talking about encouraging people to bike, to walk, to do those kinds of activities, and obviously, you're right, we want to continue to upgrade the infrastructure, but I still think in the short term, it still would be wiser to allow them onto the sidewalk.
All right. Thank you. Anything else from? All right, it is now closed to the council and open to the public. Is there anyone here that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, it is now closed to the public. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have 3 in favor and 2 dissenting.
Correct.
All right, thank you. All right, moving to new business. Item 7, SPM 03-20. This has to do with the replat for the reserve project. And Nilsa, I believe that you will be presenting this.
Yes, I believe Keith has something to say.
Yeah, I think 7 and 8 are going to be handled in conjunction with each other.
Right.
8 is a quasi-judicial. I need to swear in.
Okay.
Troy, you're going to be speaking?
Yes.
And Nilsa, anybody else going to be speaking to the council in terms of quasi-judicial testimony? Okay, if I can swear you both in. Each of you swear or affirm under penalties of perjury that your testimony to the village council will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you very much. And then I just need to come back to council. If any of you have had any ex parte discussions regarding this matter, the nature of those discussions, site visits, et cetera, would need to be placed on the record at this time for disclosure.
None.
Thank you, Mayor. We can proceed with the items.
All right, we'll stay with item 7 for now, the replat. Nilsa?
Yes, so item number 7, the replat is part of the site plan modification. Basically, they are changing the type of ownership from condominium to townhomes. And that needs to be reflected on the plat, and that is the plat in front of you today. So that's with regard specifically with item number 7. The replat is related to the item number 8, which is actually the application from Royal Tequesta LLC for a site plan modification to build 69 unit fee simple townhomes and amenities in the R2 zoning district. As you are aware, that item was an special exception use and came in front of council as such. And then the site plan moved for a planning and zoning board, and it was heard by the planning and zoning board in December. As part of the staff report on final remarks, page 14, it's very clear that the applicant, that there are conditions of approval related to this site plan modification. Some of them were already recommended by staff, and 2 new conditions of approval that were recommended by the Planning and Zoning Board. So that, I'm sure, you will go through, and maybe at the end, I can recap and emphasize what are the conditions of approval.
The other two that you're talking about, have they
Yes.
been incorporated into the document?
Yes and no.
Yes and no?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So, well, we can talk about it right now. So, one of the P&Z board recommendations was to install security cameras on the north and south pedestrian gates. So, you know, there are pedestrian gates toward the Casa del Sol and then another pedestrian gate toward the plaza. So, basically, the agent, Troy Holloway, provided the following statement. They could provide power to the two gates and they could be camera ready, but they could not put the cameras. The location would be ready to go with cameras and service should the HOA want to spend the money to activate and monitor them. So that
was the no.
The applicant's statement.
Okay. What was the yes?
The next the Planning and Zoning Board recommended to consider including a provision on the HOA document that the owner of the townhouse will need to live at the unit a minimum of 1 year prior to leasing it. So with regard to that, there was
Prior to what?
Leasing it.
Leasing.
yeah, leasing it. So with regard to that proposed recommendation from the Planning and Zoning Board, I exchanged emails with the applicant, Mr. Steve Cohen, and he said this, quotation marks, "Again, our intention is not to rent the community. We have added language into the governing documents that addresses this prior concern, period. But requiring even further restriction is not going to be something that we can agree to do. The developer needs to have the widest net possible to sell units. Again, our governing docs already factor in a rental component that we are willing to incorporate." So he sent that statement through an email, and I included on the staff report what they are proposing with regard to that. And I also had several conversations with our legal counsel.
Yes?
On this issue, you have a or a shot of the language that's in the HOA documents. The Planning and Zoning Board was advised at the hearing, and I've advised Community Development, and I'll now advise Council, this recommendation for the 1-year residency, in my opinion, is not something that is lawfully appropriate for this council to require. If the applicant wanted to voluntarily include that in their documents, that's up to them. But to make that a mandatory condition of approval really steps on the form of ownership, in my opinion, and is not an appropriate condition to mandate. And as I said, that the Planning and Zoning Board was advised of that at the hearing, and we've had staff-level discussions, and the advice has been consistent throughout.
Okay. Well, let's address the first one, number 7, the replat. Does council have any questions or comments about this particular?
I do. How is this different from the last time you were here with them?
From the last time, you mean from the special exception
Yes.
use?
Is there any difference?
No, there's no
Okay.
difference. The special exception use was in front of you, I believe, at the November council meeting, and then it moved to planning and zoning in December. So there is no difference with the special exception use.
You're just saying these two recommendations were the only thing that came out of planning and zoning?
Of course, yes, the planning and zoning board recommended these two
The-
new recommendations.
The two gates that they wanted or suggested, they have cameras on. Now, the developer's saying he's willing to put power and get everything ready for a camera should the HOA decide to go forward with it. I guess the question becomes one of, again, you've got a privacy issue here, obviously, coupled with a security issue. You also have the issue of who's going to be monitoring this. If there's no active monitoring, the only thing you could do is obviously try and tie some person who goes through the gates to some activity at some later date and time. Because I'm assuming we're not suggesting that this be monitored by our police station in any way, shape, or form, right? So from your perspective, is there any significant value to having cameras on those two gates? Because I'm concerned about privacy. I know this is a security issue, but I'm concerned about privacy. I'm concerned about how the process would even work, who would be doing the monitoring, et cetera. I do think it's up to the homeowners ultimately to decide whether there's value in that, but I'm just curious
Yeah,
as to
from
your
my
thoughts.
point of view, I believe it's a good thing that the developer is willing to have it power ready, because the issue is that, no, like you said, nobody will be sitting there on a monitor looking at everything. But if something happens, those tapes will be there, so people can go and take a look what really happened. So I think it's the developer is proposing to make it power ready, so and then it will be up to the HOA to install the camera.
Okay. Now, when you say power ready, would they also have the cabling in place going back to the clubhouse so that there would be a hookup should the HOA decide?
That's a good question. So, sir?
Troy?
Maybe, possibly. Good evening, Troy Holloway with 2GHO. We talked about that, it depends on the cameras. Some cameras are Wi-Fi, so if you had the Wi-Fi, I guess it depends on who's monitoring. If we did Wi-Fi and you had it being monitored from a hub in the clubhouse, it would just be Wi-Fi. I think that's typical, it's just doing it Wi-Fi. And that's one of the issues is who monitors, privacy, all that stuff, HOAs typically have an issue with. So that's why they thought it'd be best to have it basically ready to go. We've got lighting there, the gates are locked, there's a lot of security and lighting already, but it'll be ready for cameras.
Okay. Any other questions? But first,
I just need to recuse myself on this. I may bid on this job,
I see.
and so I am going to have to refrain from voting on it.
Well, does that apply to the replat, Keith, as well?
I was a little bit confused about that initially, and that was one reason why I was hesitant. But the more you got to talking about it, that I thought that I maybe just better
Since
just
we're
back
sort
it.
of talking about them all as a package,
Best to
let's
recuse.
yourself on
Yeah.
All right.
on those.
Any other questions? May I have a motion to approve item 7, SPM 03-20?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No. All right. Item 8, SPM 03-20. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Do we need to state anything on this one with regards to what we're accepting with regard to the security cameras or leasing it and?
Yes.
Yeah.
If we want to discuss that as something you want to have them do.
I just want to make sure that I'm just okay with the fact that you're putting power there and the two entrances and
Right.
opposed to the idea of forcing the
Right.
mandate. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that, the way it is written now,
Okay.
essentially. All right. May I have a motion to approve item 8?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Item 9, Resolution 06-21. This is about the revised land development fee schedule. Nilsa?
Yes, Madam Mayor, council members, these modifications are based on that workshop that we had, I think it was in October or November, a workshop with regard to some of the fees. At the time, the council discussed if this was appropriate or not. So basically, all what we did is to strike through and underline the new fees. For example, the tree removal permit review now is free per council recommendation, so there is no fee. Then we have the site plan modification when it's administrative approval. There will be a fee of $50. We did not have that on our code, so we are including that. And then the last one is item number 9, I believe. Is the development order time extension. So there is a fee. So the clarification is this: allowed by the village. As you know, time extension can be extended by the governor, by the executive orders of the government. Those are free. There is nothing that the village, but these
Okay.
cases are when they come under our code, and we have provisions in the code that they can extend the, the development order. So
Okay,
we just were needing a further clarification on the language.
all righty. Are there any questions for Nielsa on this item? All right, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Nielsa.
Mayor, I do have a question,
Wait a minute, Nielsa.
if I may, and
Yes.
and it's off this topic. The development that's next to Casa del Sol, which originally was developed for sale, and I thought those units had actually been sold. However, but there was an email from a resident of Casa del Sol that came to us maybe 3 weeks ago that talked about those units having been leased out, and I was scratching my head saying, well, wait a minute, I didn't know those were leased out. However, on Realtor.com 2 days ago, they put up the entire development for sale for $12 million. So I'm just wondering if we know exactly what the heck's going on with that development, because that certainly, I didn't expect those to be rented out in totality, which evidently they were. We now have this thing up for sale in totality, and I'm wondering if we have some information about what actually has transpired there.
Those, that development is Bella Villaggio, so, and they are condominiums, they are not townhomes. They had, at the time, HOA documents that they were reviewed by our legal counsel prior to being recorded. So I am not sure, the provisions that the HOA documents had in terms of leasing or any of that. So obviously, we can look at the
Can we
HOA
look into this and
documents.
find out what's transpired there?
Yes, we can
Okay.
look at the HOA documents, not a problem. We'll communicate with the village manager.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Nielsa. I think we're done there. Item 10, Resolution 01-21, this having to do with the Village Environmental Advisory Committee to meet electronically. We discussed this at our, we had a presentation from them and discussed this at a council workshop, but Jeremy, you want to go talk about that at all, or are you?
I think you kind of covered it. I just think through this declaration of emergency, we could provide that ability for the Zoom meetings or the virtual meetings. There's a lot of conversation. The governor did allow it for a period of time in council. They do follow the sunshine law. We feel mildly comfortable because they don't take action, that we can allow this board to do this virtually and not be caught up with too much. So I think, Keith and I's conversation was that we were mildly comfortable with it because they don't take action, although they still fall under the sunshine laws. I think we can move forward with it. That's the environmental committee's request, that we allow them to meet that way. I believe council feels that it's appropriate to.
Okay.
That's what this item is.
All right, thank you. Any other questions on this item? May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, item 11, Resolution 4-21, and this is supporting the 2021 Florida League of Cities Legislative Action Committee, which we have done also. I don't know if we did it in workshop, Jeremy. I know you sent it to every single one of
I
us.
sent it to everybody, I've gotten a little bit of feedback, but everybody's in agreement with the actions of Florida League of Cities, the council. So this resolution is to support those items. Just to kind of go through them, there is a fair and equitable sales tax policy. That is the online sales tax. Us as a village, we would support that along with Florida League of Cities municipal regulation of annexation of enclaves. That's as you guys know, that's a big topic for us. Short-term rental regulations, increased affordable housing funds, reasonable timeliness and assistance for utilities, to eliminate surface water discharges. Pass this resolution, it really gives staff and our elected officials kind of a unified approach as we talk to other officials in Tallahassee or in our jurisdiction. We're all kind of on the same page, and we've already
we have any questions on any of these items?
Quick question. When it comes to the annexation, which is obviously an issue we've talked about for quite a while, do we have specific language as to what they are suggesting in order to address this beyond what has already been done? Because they did take some steps in the last legislative session to address this, but it fell far short of what was needed. And I'm wondering if we've actually seen the language of what they're proposing at this point.
I have sent that out. I thought I sent that
Yeah.
out.
Okay, I didn't, okay, I'm sorry, I didn't see it.
It's relatively
then.
vague.
It's,
Still.
I mean, it is vague. I mean, there's support. Some of it has to do with just eliminating enclaves in any vote that it would take for the enclave by the residents. So maybe, shortening some of that up. But I'll be more than happy to resend that to you.
Yeah, I'm sorry I missed it. I did not find it when I went to look for it, so. I mean, I guess my only concern here is whether the language is going to be strong enough to address situations like ours, which, again, we referenced in the past, Broward County took some action to forcibly get rid of these enclaves, which made no sense for anybody. I'm just wondering if the language here is going to be strong enough to be, well, if it's not, we need to push hard on the weakest cities to make sure that it is. Because it doesn't do any good to take another baby incremental step that in reality has no effective or practical benefit.
Well, the last session, it was voted down. If we were able to get it voted in, it would be a lot easier to go to the county at that point, because that's really where it comes down to. It's not coming down to the state. It's always, we're still going to have to go to the county at some point. If it has been voted in at the state level, even if it's fairly vague, because they're trying to baby step their way into it, you're correct. I think that it would make it it would move us forward, if you will, in the county. Because I don't know that we're going to get the state to get into the weeds as much as we probably would like that to be.
The irony is, it's really, there aren't a lot of weeds here. I mean, the language here could be very clear, very simple, very straightforward, that would basically force enclaves into their appropriate municipality. But, all right, I guess we'll see what happens out of it. But just seems like it's been a topic forever, and
Yeah.
we take 2 inches forward, and that's, everybody feels good about it for the moment, but it doesn't, again, have any practical effect.
Right.
I'm just happy that they're talking about it and that they're bringing it forth to the state, and it's a point of reference. It's definitely something that I think everybody recognizes the value of, and so.
Yeah, at least it's something, it's a
I agree with
conversation.
you. But I believe it
It's a
was pretty strong.
conversation. Anything else? All right, if we're okay, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item 12, resolution number 03-21. This is amending and increasing several budgets. So Hugh, would you please talk to us, Mr. Dunkley?
Yes, good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor. Basically, this item is an annual carry forward of our outstanding purchase orders, and effectively what it's going to do is to allow us to amend the fiscal 21 budget to provide for these purchase orders so that the departments can fully expend the purchase orders. And that's essentially, we have it listed here by funds, and if you have any questions, I'm available for those questions.
This is an annual occurrence, though, as I
It's an
recall.
annual occurrence.
Yeah, it's a bookkeeping.
Precisely.
Yeah, bookkeeping. Are there any questions about this item? All right, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Item 13, resolution number 0521, and this is talking about the establishment of an auditor selection committee.
Yes, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council. The current audit contract expires after the fiscal 20 audit with our auditing firm of Record Markham LLP. And so after this expiration, there is a new state law that requires that an auditor selection committee be established. And specifically, the law provides for the following: that the committee must have at least 3 members, one of which must be a member of the council. The second major thing that it calls for is that no employee may serve on the committee. And thirdly, which it has other provisions, but these are the main ones, it goes on to outline the roles and responsibilities of the committee. So essentially, the committee is going to be meeting in the first meeting, for the most part, to establish the factors to be used in evaluating the proposers. And they'll be enabling staff to release the RFP after the RFP has been essentially reviewed by the committee and approved. And then after we have received the responses of the RFP, it is going to be the committee's members' duties to evaluate the RFP and then to rank and recommend no fewer than 3 firms for your consideration and approval. And that's in a nutshell going to be the role of the committee members.
Okay, thank you. I know that we agreed that we would all put forth one name. I was able to do that. I know that Vice Mayor Stone is going to be our committee or council member on this, that they need to do
Sure.
that. That's a change from what it used to be. Before, you weren't allowed to be on anything.
Correct.
Now, in this one, they want one. Was, anybody else have someone?
I nominated Larry Dugan,
Oh, okay.
who is a CPA, and he's lived in Tequesta for over 20 years.
Excellent, okay. Anything from you?
I didn't have anybody that was interested in it.
Right, I nominated also Bill Watkins, who is a retired engineer. Because again, this is not just about accounting, it's more about contracts and things like that.
I have a question. The committee would begin its official work when, do you expect?
Yeah. What is the timing?
What's the time frame for the committee?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, so the timeline is as follows. After we seat the committee, what I'm hoping to do is have at least one meeting with the committee members, and that will be in the sunshine. And the purpose of that meeting is for them to review the factors that's going to be in the RFP that we're going to use to evaluate the firm. They have to review those factors and approve them, and they have to approve the overall RFP. So we're looking at somewhere over the next month to do that. That will bring us to, say, the middle of February. Then after we release the RFP, we're hoping to give the firms yet another month to 6 weeks. That's going to bring us to around March, the latter part of March. March 26th is our assumed RFP submission deadline. And so that will need about another week or two to evaluate the proposals. And our hope is to have the package before you in the May or June meeting for your eventual approval.
Well, given that the main work of the committee sounds like it's going to commence sometime in March and thereafter, I have a suggestion. I don't know if it'll be, how it'll be received, but I was going to suggest that Mayor Brennan, who will be stepping down in March, who has had experience on the audit committee previously, if she's interested, might consider joining the audit committee in March.
Trying to get out, you can't do it. Well, actually, even though March is my last meeting, I am the mayor until the new mayor is seated on, what's that, April 7th or 8th, something like that, early. So I was thinking that too, but I can't join it, I wouldn't, if council was even to consider it, I really couldn't, I'd had to be joining it in midstream, so I don't think we can do that. But thank you for that. I would have enjoyed that. That would have been fine, as having done that before. But because of the
There'll be
time.
other times.
Yeah, I'm sure. I don't think, so what we have now is we have the vice mayor, we have Mr. Watkins, and we have
Larry Dugan.
Mr. Dugan. And anybody else was?
I've talked to a couple people. I don't have anybody at this moment in time, but if I do come up with somebody in the next couple of weeks, I can always put it forth as an addition to be made at the next meeting, maybe.
Keith, is that?
These three.
If I might, yeah, you can go ahead.
Could we do that? Open it back up?
Well, you want your committee to be seated to You don't, I wouldn't advise bringing somebody in after they've already met with,
After they've already
Precisely.
started.
That's not a deal.
with staff and
Right.
started the process.
Right,
Okay.
yeah.
So that would be, I'd look to finance. I don't know
And the
if you
state
could back
statute,
your.
I think it calls for that the
It says at least 3.
Yeah,
council
you gotta
has
have
to
3, right?
approve the committee.
So we would have 3.
Yeah.
You'd have to back up your,
The timeline.
timeframe,
It's
and
gonna
I don't,
be-
you know,
Means
I don't know if that's
It's really important if
doable or
somebody
not.
doesn't drop
Okay.
off.
With 3, you have, you would meet the statutory requirement with
Right.
the 3 members
Okay,
that are before you right now.
Okay.
all righty. Has anyone other comments? I tried to get other people.
I was just
mostly-
going to ask that. Is it possible for one of us to nominate 2 people?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Do you have a name?
Yeah, but I'm not going to say it until we ask them.
Well, I think
Oh.
what they're saying is
Oh.
we have to make a
You have to do it
decision.
now.
Okay.
Yeah, I did ask 2 other
Call
people,
for it.
but they're CPAs, and they were like, are you kidding me? It's tax
It's
season.
tax time. and they're-
Yep.
Exactly.
Thanks a lot for asking. But, yeah, unfortunately, no. My only fear with only 3 is that if one person steps off or whatever, then what do we do?
I've got a guy that works for me. He's a CPA and has worked for some very large auditing firms and stuff in the past. I mean, I know that he would do it if I asked him to do it.
Okay.
Now, is he a Tequesta resident, though? I think you have to be a Tequesta resident, do you not?
No.
Oh, you
No.
don't? Okay.
We always try
Okay.
to do
Yeah,
that.
he's actually looking to buy here. He lives up there off Center Street now. They're in the process of trying to find a home. They can, every time they find one, it sells before they can get over there and look at it.
Yeah,
So,
no
they're-
kidding.
you know, I was talking to him tonight actually about it, and there was a home, and 2 days later it was sold. So they're really having extreme difficulty in trying to find a home here in Tequesta, but this is where they do want to move to eventually. But his name is Daniel Grost.
You want to put him
GH.
forward then?
Yes, I will. I'll go ahead and have him, do it.
Okay.
Poor man. He is joined, has no idea.
He would be happy to hear about this, I'm sure.
Yeah. So it looks like we now have 4,
Okay.
which I feel better about, just in case somebody has to fall off. So with the names that we've just heard, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, excellent. Moving forward. All right, next item is item 14, and this is, again, this is you, Mr. Dunkley, the capital improvement revenue note.
Yes, Mayor, this item essentially is asking for your authorization for you actually to approve the top-ranked proposer, which is Sterling National Bank, and for you to also authorize execution of a loan agreement in the amount of $6.9 million with Sterling National Bank for a loan which will extend over a period of 20 years at an interest rate of 2.18%.
And that's fixed.
It is fixed.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That is truly amazing.
Earlier in the day, I recused myself and sent notice to
Yes.
Keith and
Yep, you
to the-
can't, okay, thank you for letting us know that. All right, are there any other questions of Mr. Dunkley on this item?
No.
All right, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next is item 15, which is amending and increasing the fiscal year 2020-2021 budgets.
So Mayor, Vice Mayor, this is essentially just a derivative of the loan agreement. We're now going to recognize the proceeds of the loan in our budget and also recognize the intended expenditures, one of which is the construction of the community center, along with some other public works and parks and recreational improvements. And that's what the budget amendment
Right.
Calls for.
Yeah, I did see that schedule. Do we have any questions about this? All right, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And a big yay for the community center.
Yay.
Yes.
Just to recognize Hugh for all his work that he's done with us. He's done a lion's share of work, and, we started this process, well, you guys started the process many years ago, but, we started this process, I don't know, 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago, just talking about this process, and he put in a lot of work, and could have done without, so thank you.
All right. Thank
Absolutely.
you, Mr. Dunkley. Appreciate that. Item 16, which is approve a work authorization MRU 21.01. And Mr. Hammond.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Council. The next two items are related to well construction and rehabilitation projects. During this previous fiscal year, there was a well condition assessment that was completed. The village has 15 groundwater wells, which include 11 superficial wells and 4 upper Florida aquifer wells. As part of that analysis, which included consultants as well as our operators, there was a number of recommendations that came out of it, including this item here, which was the replacement of a number of very old superficial aquifer wells. The first of which being well number 19, which is the one that's being proposed right here. So this project is, or this agenda item is the recommendation to move forward with Mock Roos as the consultant for design, permitting, and construction of the replacement of well number 19.
One step.
When you say,
Exciting.
how many did you say superficial wells do we have?
We have 11 superficial wells.
We do. And what happens when they give up? Do they give up at some point?
Yeah, they do.
Okay.
They get old, they get overpumped. A number of things can happen. They can start to introduce sand into them, which starts showing up in the treatment process. They can lose, one of the most common is they lose capacity. As you draw water through that
Membrane.
yeah, through that substrate, through the porous soil, rocky soil, you start to build up minerals, and it's harder to suck that water out of the ground. And you can also see water quality issues.
Do you seal them then and go on to another one? Do we have a lot of room for more superficial wells, or we have enough land?
So the 3 of the 4 that are recommended for replacement, they're recommended for replacement right in the same location that they are. So you move over a little bit, you
Okay.
drill a new well. A lot of the equipment, the mechanical equipment, this one in particular and the 2 others, they're actually, the pumps and equipment are in pits in the ground. That's no longer permitted now. You have to have them above grade because you have the potential for introduction of surface water into the wells.
Okay.
So these will be a new well drilled next to it with new casing, pump equipment that all meets current regulatory requirements.
A question a little off the cuff here a little bit. How much salt intrusion do you get out of these wells, if any?
Thankfully, we're not seeing saltwater intrusion. There are monitoring wells at the, well, actually at the same park. This well is located at Tequesta Park on the western side of the park property. There are also groundwater monitoring wells that are specifically for that purpose. So, but thankfully, it's not an issue that we're
How deep
dealing
are
with
they?
at that time. These superficial wells are less than 100 feet.
Really?
They're not terribly deep.
It's amazing how those aquifers and stuff run down through here and we don't get any salt intrusion in them. Yeah.
Is there any other questions on this item? All right, let's do the one first, item 16. May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I think we can go right into item 17 and take what you've given us already, correct? I don't need anything more on that, so may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, next item is the, to authorize sole source purchase contract.
Yep, this is an annual contract that we have with Evaqua Technologies. The village uses at the water plant, hydrogen peroxide is one of the chemicals that's used. It's introduced into the concentrate or the byproduct water from the membrane process, and it's used to increase the dissolved oxygen and oxidize sulfur in there. So part of this, the reason that this is a sole source is because part of this agreement is that Evaqua provides and maintains the equipment that goes along with it. The pricing for this year is, they're holding the same price that they provided last year, which has previously been vetted prior to bringing to council as being fair and competitive based on the market.
Any questions? All right, may I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Last item is the appointment of council member and an alternate member to the canvassing board for the March 9th, 2021 municipal election. And Mary Ann, do you have more information on this? Laurie used to give us a little bit of,
I don't have any more information other than we're looking for a council member and an alternate member for the upcoming election.
okay.
We have to go down there.
Pardon?
I think we have to go down there.
The alternate doesn't have to go unless I don't believe if the alternate goes unless the primary cannot go.
Right.
I think that's how it works. And yes, you accompany with a police officer, you accompany, usually it'll be Mary Ann or Laurie, one of the two clerks, and go down. I've done it before. It's it's nice. So if anybody's over here.
I would not mind volunteering for that.
You don't mind?
No, thank you.
Does anybody else mind volunteering for that?
No, I'll volunteer too.
Well, let's do a primary and an alternate then from the two people that have
And just
spoken up
to
first.
make sure it's, you either
Pardon
have
me?
to be unopposed or not on the, or your seat's not up.
My seat is not up.
Okay,
Nor mine.
Yeah, that's correct.
just making sure.
Well, thank you. Well, then I think we're there.
Okay.
Laurie would be the primary and Frank would be the alternate. Is that okay?
That's fine.
Fine by me.
All right.
Sounds good, Frank.
May I have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right, yes. Now, moving on to any other matters. What do we have over here? Anything?
Good.
No?
Nothing specific.
Nothing specific.
I
Yeah.
had two quick items. Matt, I wanted to ask you, have we resolved all the issues around the water meter billings where people,
Matt, could you come to the podium, please?
where people had some issues? I know we were addressing them, you guys were doing a nice job of communicating on that. I was curious if those have now all been put to bed at this point.
The short answer is yes.
Okay.
Thankfully, we're now have that behind us for several months. The most recent bill went out last week of December, hit mailboxes the first week of January. Knock on wood, it's been eerily quiet, which is what we want.
Okay. And then my second item was, with the legislative session coming up.
Can I ask him a question real quick?
Oh, sure, sorry.
While you're still there,
Yeah, don't
we have that delay in the billing cycle from the actual. Is there any thought process to making, shortening that down to more of a 30-year day period?
In the reading times or when the bills are sent out?
So as we read the bill, we know what it is, we send that bill out very, very fast versus waiting 30 days or so.
Yep, that's absolutely in the works for this year. It's one that we're planning to slowly phase in,
Okay.
because people
do it all.
count on when that bill comes. And so it's one that we're gonna be phasing in very gradually to reduce that,
Should we communicate that? Okay.
when we start to,
When we
yes.
start. Can we communicate it before we start it?
No.
Yes, I'm sorry, let me rephrase, but before we
it
start
doesn't
to,
happen.
things are quiet, and so we're, before we,
You'd like them quiet for a little longer.
yes.
Just a little longer.
But yes, we will communicate that before we start.
That's all I ask. No surprises.
I favor that.
And Frank had something else.
Yeah, so my second item was the legislative session starting February 1st. If we, I know I brought this up in the past of trying to talk about earmarks for Tequesta Park. If we're going to do something in that regard, we have to act pretty quickly. So I don't know what the council's desires are here, but I think a meeting with Senator Powell and Representative Snyder, I know there's already been
I did that.
one.
I did both of them.
Okay, have we actually pressed them on the issue of the earmarks?
Well, we
and-
didn't press them. We brought it up, and they would support it.
Okay.
So now we have to, it really comes down to Jeremy and grants and things like that, what we can, because which was wrong, Representative Snyder said, well, why don't you go to Martin County? And we're saying, no, that's not going to work because Martin County is wanting us to do some certain things and we're not willing to do that in terms of that.
The bridge.
The bridge.
Right.
And that really wouldn't be the answer. It's a state park.
That's correct.
It-
It's
you know,
state land. Yeah.
It's a state park. It's, you know, it's state land, state park. So I guess, Jeremy, it's really back to, are we looking at this yet in terms of any more grants? I know that Jack's been on the lookout as well.
Well,
We're not talking grants.
We're on
yeah,
the
I'm not
lookout.
talking about grants here. I'm talking about an earmark, and, which would be a much larger sum and would be, you know, dedicated strictly to that use. And I don't, you know, my understanding is if there's legislation, or if it's going to be in the legislation that's going to this session, it's got to be in before February 1st. So we only have 2 weeks, if we want to try and do something here, to get to Senator Powell, to get to Representative Snyder, and actually to have a proposal put forth specific to Tequesta Park. I mean,
It's
if we
not a
miss
bad
it this year,
idea.
we could do it next year, but I'd like, you know, and I'm willing to participate in this in any way I can, should the council so desire, but I'd like to see us make an effort to try and at least put something to them to say, we would like you to support this, and try to get them to get it into the state budget legislation for the year.
Well, we have a draft drawing of some ideas and some concepts, and I don't know that
For the
we've.
park itself, yes.
Correct.
Right. I think
Says something.
a letter, Jeremy, you know, if we, a follow-up letter to both of our visits, because we did it together. One was virtual and one was in the office. Maybe a follow-up letter we've discussed it, now can we ask you to act on this? This is something. What we're hearing is nobody has any money right now. Everybody is suffering because of COVID, and so we're hearing that. But we could certainly write a letter and be specific about asking for it.
And even if we didn't get it this year, at least if we tee it up,
Yeah,
it's
get it.
there.
Yeah, it's a good
Okay,
idea.
next year maybe is a better year.
Keep asking.
Yeah.
Yeah, just keep asking. Okay, anybody else have anything? The only thing I have is, I am still concerned about meeting in chambers like this. We don't have the partitions between us, like a lot of, you know, places do. And, you know, maybe if it wasn't the council meetings, but something that we didn't act on, like a council workshop, if we could consider going back onto a full Zoom, and I would work out of the EOC, Chief, because the way they set that up, we were more than 7 feet apart. We were all, you know, you're easily 10 feet apart because of the way they do it, the way they set it up. I just still think that, I'm still very concerned about this COVID and the increase that the chief has been talking about, Dr. Alonso was talking about, and that it's, even with the vaccine, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets anywhere, you know, that there's going to be enough vaccine. So I'm just going to throw it back out there again. If we could do a Zoom the workshops like we had done before, continue in chambers, just to minimize not only to council, but to the staff that come to these meetings and have to sit in these rooms as well. And I just want to throw this out as something I would like to see us change at some point. And Keith, I don't know if we have to do a resolution, not that anybody's agreeing with me on that, but in terms of workshops where we're not taking action, I don't know how that works, if we would have to.
Well,
go
the
to a
issues
resolution
that I've articulated
for that,
would not apply to a workshop setting because you're not taking action.
right.
So I don't have.
So we wouldn't need to do anything to,
You know, if you wanted to memorialize that you're doing it, you can. Do you have to legally? You know, again, a workshop is different because you don't. Well, the sunshine law still applies, but.
yeah.
But you'd all be present. I would
Virtually.
recommend doing a resolution. If the council wants to formally take that action, go ahead and memorialize it.
Right.
Acknowledge the ongoing state of emergency from COVID-19.
Right.
And we can put that together for you without too much
Right.
trouble.
Well,
I want a clarification. When you say EOC, do you mean all of us over there?
No.
Or just you
No,
over
we would
there?
we would just do a virtual the reason I was saying about the EOC was that I thought it was a safer environment for us.
But we would still be in there.
No,
Us is fine.
no,
No. So I'm zooming from home again.
yes, for a workshop.
No.
Just for
I
a
don't love
workshop.
that idea, but okay.
Okay.
So I would be in favor of, especially a workshop, if the department heads wanted to be in Zoom just like they are now here, giving them the opportunity to speak via that. I would be absolutely okay with that. And even if any one of you wanted to participate virtually, but I would like to have it as an option, because I prefer coming in and seeing
Right, yeah, I know.
faces.
I appreciate that, I know that's true.
I'm not against anybody else doing it.
Right,
all.
right. No, well, I mean, I'm just looking at numbers, I'm listening to the experts, I'm going through all of that, and just want to make sure that everyone's safe. The clerk cannot work virtually, I don't think, unless we are working virtually. I think the clerk would have to be here. But again, I'm just bringing it up one more time. I know I'm not going to make this happen, and I appreciate that, I understand that, but, and Frank just shared with us that he had COVID
Christmas.
over Christmas.
But, yeah,
So we're
I
dropping like
agree with
flies.
Kyle, I'm still in favor of the in-person.
I did my time.
You did your time.
You did your time.
All right, so I know I'm not getting anywhere with this, I'm just putting it out there in any other matters.
Okay.
So, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all, good meeting.
Good luck, Jeremy.